All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brittany Booth-Paler, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the Texas Department of Information Resources. And just want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. We're so excited that so many of you are here for a 3 p.m. webinar. We've developed this webinar primarily as a resource for state agencies, but much of the material will also be relevant to our friends in higher ed, and we hope those of you that are joining us from local government entities will find value as well. So a few housekeeping matters just to get started. The webinar is being recorded. We're going to post it on DIR's YouTube channel. Please use the Q&A pane for any questions that come up during the presentation, and we'll either provide a written response or we'll save them to answer at the end if we have time for discussion. And use the chat for any comments. And we're going to be sending this presentation out later. It will contain links to all the resources and contact information should you have follow-up questions. Our next slide is our agenda, and we have a lot to cover. Our goal today is to give you a quick overview of how DIR is implementing the technology legislation that was passed during the last session, next year's planning and legislative reporting process and the deadlines, and how DIR can assist you and your organization in developing your IT funding request for the next legislative session. And then our next slide is just a timeline to give us some perspective on where we are and where we're going in the next year. So when the 89th legislative session ended in June, that's when the interim began between sessions. And as you all know, that's when agencies begin the real work. We're all implementing bills. We have our legislative reports to complete, and then we'll start preparing the legislative appropriation request. So as we discuss all that today, we just want you all to know that DIR is here to partner with you all and to set you up for success for the 90th session of the Texas Legislature. So to kick things off, we have Cody Nguyen, who's going to provide a brief overview of DIR's legislative implementation.
Thank you, Brittany. Hi, everyone. My name is Cody Nguyen, and I serve as the Government Relations Specialist in the Office of Public Affairs. The 89th legislature was a very productive session for technology legislation, and today I'm going to go over how DIR is implementing 7 of its most substantial bills. For those seeking more information on the bills I go over today and other technology bills that passed this year, DIR published a more detailed report titled From Capital to Code that is available on our website. At the end of today's webinar, we will also send a link to this report for easy access. So we'll start with House Bill 150, which created the Texas Cyber Command, or TXCC, as a standalone state agency and transfers DIR's cybersecurity duties to it. On September 16th, Governor Abbott named TJ White the first Cyber Command chief. And since then, DIR has been assisting the chief to help set up the new agency, hire key staff, and acquaint him with DIR's cybersecurity programs, as well as Texas state government in general. DIR and the command are also working on the Memorandum of Understanding for the transfer of cybersecurity services to the new agency as required by HB 150. Agencies should be aware that at this point, their current cybersecurity contacts and processes are still in place. We are working closely to ensure a smooth transition and will be communicating with agencies as developments occur. And now on to AI legislation. Many of you may know Tony Sauerhoff as the Chief Information Security Officer for Texas. Tony is now bringing his extensive cybersecurity and technology expertise to serve as DIR's new Chief AI Innovation Officer and will oversee a new AI division at DIR as established by HB 2818, which we will talk about in a minute. DIR's Chief Technology Officer, John Hoffman, who we will also hear from in a minute, will continue his AI efforts in strategic outreach and the Innovation Lab. The legislature granted DIR approximately $7.3 million and authority to hire 9 new FTEs to implement new AI programs under the 4 AI bills listed here. We are in the process of hiring for these new positions. So first, House Bill 149, also known as TRIGA, establishes regulations on the use of AI, creates a regulatory sandbox for the private sector, and establishes new reporting requirements for state agencies on AI usage. Although the bill creates regulations for AI use in the public sector, it mostly impacts private sector entities. We are currently awaiting the appointment of the Texas Artificial Intelligence Council, which, under the bill, will be a 7-member board charged with reviewing state AI regulations and ensuring AI systems are developed in the public's interest. DIR will provide administrative support to the council once it is established. Furthermore, the bill requires agencies to provide DIR with an AI inventory through the Information Resources Deployment Review, or IRDR, which Elizabeth Cooper will soon discuss in more detail. Senate Bill 1964, which does focus on the public sector, establishes a framework for state and local governments to develop and use AI systems. Governor Abbott appointed the Public Sector Artificial Intelligence Systems Advisory Board on November 6th. It is comprised of 8 members, 6 from state agencies and 2 public members, to provide guidance to and share information with state agencies on their procurement and implementation of AI tools. The bill requires DIR to set by rule an AI code of ethics and minimum standards for heightened scrutiny AI systems. DIR posted the proposed rules in the Texas Register for its 30-day comment period on November 7th, and we are now reviewing stakeholder input and will present the rules to DIR's board for final approval next year. The bill also requires government entities to provide a standardized notice on all applications and websites if they are deploying public-facing AI systems or AI systems that are a controlling factor in a consequential decision. DIR is in the process of drafting a form that agencies can use to fulfill that notice requirement, and we will communicate that to you all when it's ready. Finally, under this bill, planning for the design of the AI systems sandbox for public entities will begin early next year. Moving on to House Bill 2818, which creates a specific AI division at DIR to help agencies modernize legacy systems using AI. As previously mentioned, Tony Sauerhoff will head this new division, and the hiring process for 2 new AI systems analysts to support it is in progress. This division will be the backbone of all of these new AI initiatives, including the sandboxes I previously mentioned, and will also assist agencies in modernizing projects using AI. DIR is excited for the opportunity to support agencies in their legacy modernizations, and we invite you to please reach out to Tony if there are possible use cases that you would like to explore. House Bill 3512 requires DIR, in consultation with the Public Sector AI Advisory Board, to certify at least 5 AI training programs for state employees. State employees who use a computer for at least 25% of their work and certain local government employees will be required to take the new AI training. DIR has drafted standards for certification of the trainings that the Public Sector AI Board will review at their first meeting. Once the board reviews them, DIR will post the requirements so that vendors can submit their AI trainings for certification. DIR is also working on a free certified training option for state and local entities, which will be posted on DIR's YouTube channel, similar to DIR's 30-minute cybersecurity training. Now on to House Bill 1500, or DIR's sunset legislation. Last biennium, DIR underwent its sunset review, and we are pleased with the legislative recommendations that became HB 1500, the best one, of course, being to continue DIR for 12 more years. Here's a quick implementation update on these items. HB 1500 requires DIR to develop a voluntary IT procurement training and certification for state contract developers and contract managers to help deepen their expertise in procuring IT tools. DIR is currently developing the curriculum for this initiative. The bill also requires development of a voluntary IT procurement training for agency executives to help them better understand DIR's IT solutions and services and inform procurement decisions. DIR plans to host the first training in person early next year. HB 1500 also asks DIR to establish a procurement as a service pilot program to assist agencies with IT procurements, and we are working on hiring 2 FTEs to administer this program. By the way, a big thank you to everyone that participated in our customer listening sessions on September 25th to gather information on agency procurement needs. If you couldn't make it, you are still invited to share your feedback on your agency's IT procurement needs with DIR's Chief Procurement Office to help inform this new program. The bill also separated data maturity assessments from the information security assessments and requires the agencies to submit those assessments to DIR by June 1st of each even-numbered year. Changes to the current data maturity assessment rule in Texas Administrative Code 218 to align the new statutory deadline should be finalized early next year. Finally, House Bill 1500 requires state agencies to receive a state-funded penetration test and assessment once every 2 years. Please reach out to DIR to schedule your security assessment if you haven't already done so. And finally, let's talk about House Bill 5195, which requires DIR to develop statewide guidance to assist agencies with website improvements for accessibility and modernization. First, DIR has published a fact sheet on its own website detailing responsibilities that DIR and state agencies bear regarding this bill. DIR is moving quickly to complete website guidelines and templates required by the bill. Once released, these can be used by state agencies to assess their websites for improvements as defined by the bill. DIR is also looking to provide optional tools to help with these assessments. DIR will also soon publish a HB 5195 webpage on its website to house these guidelines and templates for state agencies, as well as other information regarding the bill. Agencies will be informed once the website is released. DIR must report the status of state agencies' website modernizations efforts and has included questions in the IRDR to meet this requirement, again, as Elizabeth will discuss shortly. Finally, DIR will continue to communicate updates through various channels to ensure agencies have access to all information and resources. And that's all from me. Thank you for your time. As a reminder, more information on these bills can be found in DIR's report titled Capital to Code, Technology Bills of the 89th Legislature, and the Office of Public Affairs contact info will also be provided at the end of this presentation. And I will now pass it off to Tessa Lopez.
Great, thanks, Cody. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tessa Lopez, and I am a senior policy analyst in DIR's Office of Public Affairs. If we go to the next slide, please, Mark. I coordinate the development of one of DIR's cornerstone reports, and that is a state strategic plan for information resources management. We are required to update this plan every odd year, and the most recent version was just published this past November. This plan sets forth the strategic direction for the next 5 years. It defines technology goals, and it gives state agencies a framework to modernize technology, strengthen security, and deliver innovative public services. Agencies can use this plan as a guide when developing technology strategies, requesting funding, and planning for modernization. The updated plan defines the 4 high-level goals that you see here. These goals build on those of the previous plan, but with more focus on accessibility, trust, workforce resilience, and the use of AI and emerging technologies. The 4 goals that you see listed here further dive down into 16 actionable objectives that agencies can apply to make progress toward aligning with the overall goals. To learn more about the goals that you see here, along with those 16 actionable objectives that I mentioned, you can click on the link that's right below at the bottom of the slide there, and you can see the full detailed plan at that link. The next item on the agenda is the Information Resources Deployment Review, otherwise known as the IRDR. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Elizabeth to discuss that further.
Thank you, Tessa. Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Cooper, Director of Planning, Policy, and Reporting. And as Tessa mentioned, I'm here today to talk about the Information Resources Deployment Review. But before I do, let's take a step back and look at how DIR partners with you throughout the biennial planning, reporting, and funding cycle. So the odd-numbered years are all about policy and planning. As Cody discussed earlier, DIR follows technology bills throughout the legislative session. Now, we may work with you to assess a bill's fiscal implications when it impacts shared technology services or help you identify technology options for services or efficiencies that are proposed in a particular bill. Post-session, DIR communicates with you about the enacted technology legislation that creates new responsibilities for your agency and for DIR. And we often provide guidance for technology legislation implementation. And I did throw in the chat a link to the legislation summary that Cody mentioned, and also the fact sheet on HB 5195. So also in the odd-numbered years, DIR is busy working with many of you who serve on the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee to develop those statewide goals that Tessa just presented. The even-numbered years bring us to reporting season, my favorite time of the biennium. This is when agencies complete the IRDR, the Information Resources Deployment Review, and submit any required information resources corrective action plans. It's also a time when state agencies prepare their agency strategic plans, their security plans, and their legislative appropriations requests, or LARs. Your agency may participate in the prioritization of cybersecurity and legacy systems, or PCLS, or you might participate in the LAR process for shared technology services. Both of those are explained later in this webinar. DIR uses the information submitted by your agencies to give the legislature a bird's eye view of the state's technology status, priorities, and funding needs. As Brittany said in her introduction, DIR wants to partner with you throughout this cycle so that the state has the technology it needs to efficiently and effectively serve Texans. Next slide, please. So let's take a deeper dive into the IRDR. Each biennium, state agencies go through an IRDR process that examines their technology environment, confirms compliance with the state's technology statutes, rules, and standards, measures progress against the state technology goals, those goals that Tessa mentioned, and provides a technology inventory of devices and applications, including artificial intelligence. The IRDR is due on March 31st of even-numbered years. And for those of you who do not work for state agencies, public universities only need to complete the digital accessibility and the website modernization portions of the IRDR. Those sections are highlighted for institutions of higher education in the instructions. Local governments and school districts are not required to participate in the IRDR process. So what are the sources of the information we receive in the IRDR? IRDR participants must submit their responses and the inventory in DIR's secure portal, Spectrum. Spectrum stands for Statewide Portal for Enterprise Cybersecurity Threat, Risk, and Incident Management. I'll just stick with Spectrum in this presentation. DIR pre-populates Spectrum with IRDR responses from previous years when they are available and the questions haven't changed. For shared technology services, or STS agencies, DIR imports data from the ServiceNow inventory into the inventory in Spectrum for devices. The IRDR inventory is open and available for changes in Spectrum year-round. Agencies can also use the Application Portfolio Management, or APM, assessment tool at any time. State agencies must certify that their IRDR inventory is complete, up-to-date, and accurate on the date that they submit their IRDR. So how do we use IRDR data? State agencies and public universities can use their own IRDR data to identify risk, improve compliance, and support funding requests. If your agency plans to include technologies in the PCLS to support your LAR, you will need to make sure that all associated business applications have an up-to-date APM. DIR uses your IRDR responses to evolve DIR services, inform our procurements that we prepare. We use the information to prepare legislative reports, assess compliance, and tackle common technology challenges. I also wanted to let you know that there's some requirements that we have around this process, and one is to report the status of corrective action plans, or IR CAPs, to state leadership. We're also required to assess and report on agency technology, cybersecurity, and AI risk in a confidential report. And we also, new in 2026, is we need to verify the accuracy of a sample of IRDRs. So what is new in the 2026 IRDR? The 2026 IRDR instructions are now available on the DIR website, and Spectrum will open in 2026. In the meantime, please use the instructions to get a head start. We encourage subject matter experts across your agency to review the questions early so they can get started on gathering the information before Spectrum opens. The 2026 IRDR includes several new questions and inventory requirements. Most are related to those bills that Cody discussed that were enacted by the 89th legislature. To meet House Bill 149 and Senate Bill 1964 requirements, the IRDR includes new AI questions and asks agencies to identify AI systems in their IRDR inventory. The 2026 IRDR also includes questions that will allow DIR to report on the status of all of your website modernization planning efforts as required by HB 5195. You will also find a few additional cybersecurity questions. And I did want to make you aware that, as Cody mentioned, we are working very closely with the Texas Cyber Command, and we will share your cybersecurity responses with the command now that it has been created under House Bill 150. These responses will give the command a little bit more insight into the state agency's security posture. HB 1500 DIR sunset bill requires DIR to do that accuracy review that I mentioned before. We have to review the IRDRs and parts of the IRDRs of at least 5 agencies each biennium. The first round of this work will be completed before the 90th legislative session. If your agency is one of the agencies selected for this review, we will reach out to your CIO, whoever's filling that IRM role, your CEO, and your internal audit staff. So it won't be a surprise. And the other thing I wanted to let you know is the statute tells us to use what we learn to improve training and recommend solutions. So it's not intended to be a gotcha. Instead, it's going to help us make the instructions clearer to help people avoid mistakes when they're completing their IRDR. DIR works with state agencies and public universities throughout the IRDR process. And as I mentioned, the instructions are now available. I'll throw them in the chat in a minute. And we will contact your staff that's serving in that Information Resources Manager or IRM role, and also other roles like the Digital Accessibility Coordinator and your Information Security Officers will get information through their normal communication channels with DIR. We are holding a training and Spectrum demonstration in February, and we're going to start our office hours for the IRDR a little bit earlier than we did last round. And so beginning in February, we will have office hours every Thursday as well. In the meantime, please get familiar with the instructions, and you can feel free to reach out to us. We'll have emails at the end of this presentation that are easy to find, and I'll also throw it in the chat. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, the IRDR is just one of the many reporting responsibilities that we all have in 2026. While it's a big undertaking, and that's calendar year 2026, it is a big undertaking. These reports, along with other information, provide the legislature with insight on the status of state government technology and it may help them in prioritizing funding for modernization. DIR wants to ensure you have timely, accurate, and consistent information about the IRDR and other reports, and we stand ready to partner with you through the entire cycle. Now I will turn it over to John Hoffman, and he's going to talk to you about funding considerations for state technology.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good afternoon. I'm John Hoffman, DIR CTO. We've reviewed quite a bit of information on legislation, the IRDR, and other reporting responsibilities. I'd like to take a moment and touch on some funding considerations. Each session, projects are reviewed for appropriation, and often these submissions are technically accurate, but really don't resonate with the appropriation staff and leaders. We thought it'd be beneficial to review some funding considerations that are often overlooked. First, make sure you're understanding your audience. Of course, it's the appropriative staff and leaders, but it can also be internal, such as your agency business units, finance teams, executive, government relation teams. Not only should these internal departments contribute to the scoping of the request and the value, but they can be strong advocates as they often have internal influence in the priority of the different projects and which ones are submitted and reviewed and approved. Be sure to tailor the project name and all the communications to bring clarity to the project and the benefit. It may seem like a system upgrade to you that funds the purchase of X and Y and very technical components, but framing it in plain language that really helps improve the clarity of the availability, constituent experience, gained efficiencies, things that the business units can advocate, really helps bring the value forward. Especially when forming the projects, consider agency priorities. Focus on increased cybersecurity, operational continuity, workforce effectiveness, cost justifications. All of those things can really help your audience understand its purpose. Second, tie the spending to a larger strategy, especially when it goes outside the agency. It really speaks to the importance of the project when it goes back to the state strategic plan or an agency strategic plan. Highlight the tangible outcomes. Oftentimes it's a request and it talks about the project and the implementation path, but it doesn't really define what the tangible outcomes are. Quantify as much as possible. And then finally, break it down, explain the cost. Appropriation forms are standard, but provide as much insight as possible on the cost components and how they were derived. Insights to other known project costs, estimates from research, formalized rough orders of magnitudes from the market or from our STS program. Harden those justifications of savings and know that they may impact other budgets, and be clear if there are savings or impact to other budgets or what that timing is. There may be implementation, transition, other components, and so be clear to the appropriators on when that savings or when that impact will happen. Be ready for the inevitable question. Most likely we all get asked, what happens if only X% is funded, or can this be broken into multiple budget cycles? Having the IT business units, all the different executives, everyone aligned on what those different considerations are and options are up front can save a scramble during the session and everyone trying to understand what those options are. So with that, next slide. Let's talk a little bit about the information flow and just the way that I perceive it kind of building and growing in a appropriation understanding of defining the projects. With the different reporting requirements, it's really an opportunity to build the list of projects to be considered. To begin with, the IRDR that Elizabeth just went through and the IR cap, if needed. They may point out areas in accessibility, cybersecurity, data management, continuity, website updates. All of those things can be, triggered through the IRDR process, and then that can then drive project funding and development for those requests. Looking at the APM and taking the inventory of the different systems and assets and submitting that may point out needs for modernization and give you perspective on where that can be updated. And then finally, the PCLS, the Prioritization of Cybersecurity and Legacy Systems Projects, is another tool we'd like to highlight. When projects are identified to strengthen an agency's security posture, or if they are replacing or modernizing a legacy system, the PCLS report is an option for the agencies. Next slide. Uh-oh. Oh, we started over. Here we go. Well, I'll talk about PCLS a little bit and they'll catch up to it. The PCLS is an opportunity for agencies to highlight critical projects. Almost one more. There we go. The PCLS uses a form and spectrum, and Elizabeth kind of detailed out spectrum, but it's a great way for agencies to provide documentation into the system that really talks about the system risk and the impacts, as well as what provide insight to the timing, benefits, and complexity of the project. There are two categories of projects. One is where the project really focuses on cybersecurity posture. These are new cyber tools. These are monitoring, encryption, firewall, vulnerability management. Those types of projects are common as cybersecurity framed projects. Now, the second category is modernization of legacy systems, database updates, business systems, network upgrades, all of these things. And they may provide cyber benefits as well, but that's not their primary focus. And so those are categorized in the modernization side and then shown that there may be other cyber benefits through it, but it's a modernization project versus a cybersecurity project. So all these projects are submitted to DIR through the PCLS spectrum and system in spectrum. Then we score them based on an algorithm and provided a ranking broken into quadrants of priority. Those are all based upon different facets that the legislators have said are importance and such. The summary of the projects, as well as each submission, is then provided to the LBB, as well as the legislative appropriation leaders and their staff. Each agency that submits it gets a copy of the overall summary of the report, as well as where their project was scored against the overall program. It's a tool, certainly not the only tool that is used to identify and appropriate funds, but it's a key tool that the LBB and the legislative staff have said that they use when evaluating IT spending requests. Next slide. There we go. The last thing here is let's talk about the process for PCLS. In May, we're going to have instructions posted on the website, and then we'll do a webinar in June. It leverages, like I said, spectrum for the submission, and the agency deadline to submit corresponds to their appropriation date. And so what that really ties to is there's no use putting a project into a PCLS request if it actually wasn't an appropriation. And so we use the appropriation request and information that OBB passes back and forth with us to ensure that that is a legitimate project submission, and then the PCLS is tied to it. We will compile and complete the analysis throughout September and submit by October 1st. I want to point out each year, agencies will come to us the very end of September or on October 1st and say, hey, here's our PCLS report. That October 1st date is the date that DIR provides that statutorily to the LBB and the legislative leadership. The actual date for the agency corresponds to their appropriation submission date, usually in July or August. So just wanted to make sure I highlight that again. October 1st is our date. Your all's date to submit a PCLS request is based upon your appropriation submission. So with that, appreciate your time. I'm going to hand over to Jody and talk a little bit about our shared technology services.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. My name is Jody Erickson, and I have the pleasure of being the Director of Shared Services Financial Analysis at DIR. I'm going to be talking with you today about the Shared Technology Services Program and how the forecasting processes associated with that program can assist you and existing customers and new customers secure funding for the technology and cyber initiatives that we've been talking about. The shared technology There are currently 5 towers in the STS program that operate under the Capgemini multi-sourcing integrator umbrella. The MSI brings the people, processes, and tools like ServiceNow to ensure the program operates smoothly across all vendors. Starting on the left, you have the original data center services program that brings private cloud and mainframe services provided by Atos, public cloud services such as AWS, Azure, OCI, and Google that are currently provided by Rackspace and transitioning to NTT effective June of 2026. Bulk print mail services provided by Xerox, and data center security operations provided by SAIC. And finally, technology solution services with services currently provided by Deloitte provides full service and staff augmentation resources for application road mapping, development, maintenance, and maintenance for applications that are targeted to operate on data center infrastructure. TSS services could be an ideal option to assist with legislative initiatives like the website modernization that Cody mentioned earlier, or even legacy modernization projects that John mentioned. Next, we have the Texas.gov tower, which is operated by 2 vendors, First Data and Deloitte. First Data provides online payment processing services for all of the major card brands, Visa, Amex, MasterCard, Discover, as well as ACH transactions. Additionally, Deloitte provides application support for digital government solutions via Texas.gov, the state's one-stop web portal, or Texas by Texas, the state's highly rated mobile application, currently serving more than 11 million constituents. In the center of the slide, we have the Managed Security Services Tower operated by SAIC that brings a variety of security services that can be leveraged to help with your cyber initiatives, including those you may have identified in the PCLS report. The tower also includes penetration testing and EDR, NDR services, which both DIR and TEA have current biennium funding available that customers may be able to leverage to get those services on your behalf. The Texas Identity Access Management Tower, also operated by Deloitte, formerly called Digital Identity Program. The legislature also provided DIR with funding that you may be able to leverage to address multi-factor authentication or single sign-on needs, or to obtain an identity access management assessment to help evaluate your current IAM infrastructure, identify gaps, and provide remediation strategies with cost estimates that can be used in your appropriation requests. And finally, on the far right, we have the Open Data Portal operated by Tyler Tech, which allows you to provide the public with access to large data sets and can reduce recurring public information responses, often at no additional cost to you. All this to say, if you're struggling with hiring technology or security resources, looking for ways to expedite application work, or need access to state-of-the-art tooling and support, the STS program could be the right fit for you, and we'd love to help you secure the program funding. For perspective, the current 26-27 biennium STS enterprise report that we submitted to the LBB included funding requests for 120 customers totaling approximately $1.5 billion, and approximately $1.1 billion of that was appropriated. Next slide. The STS program delivers value by leveraging the state's volumes across those 120 plus customers to achieve volume discounts, and by providing cost-effective infrastructure application and security support with standard repeatable processes, robust security protocols, and modern technology and tooling, all without the need to initiate separate procurement processes. The STS forecasting process can help you develop accurate and reliable budget estimates and cost-benefit analyses analysis to support funding requests for your most critical technology and security initiatives, whether you are an existing or new STS customer. Next slide. So I added this eligibility slide to emphasize the STS program, and all the towers within the operating model are available to all public entities. Perhaps today you are only leveraging O365 services or Texas imagery services within the program, or maybe you already have an existing interagency or interlocal contract with us for managed security incident support, just in case that is ever needed. This means the process to obtain estimates for expanding those services into new towers during the upcoming legislative cycle is fairly straightforward, and those estimates can be integrated into our STS forecasting process and that STS enterprise report due to the LBB next summer in advance of session. If you're a potential new customer, we have exceptional MSI and DIR customer specialists that will help guide you through the process of onboarding activities, obtaining cost estimates, and integrating into our forecasting process. Next slide. So while we may all be currently thinking more about the upcoming holidays than the next legislative appropriation request cycle, it's never too early to start the process of obtaining a no-cost STS ROM cost estimate or to request an IAM assessment, especially if you are new to the program. The STS contracts are typically 4-year base contracts with 4 option year renewals, which means we already have fixed negotiated rates available for 28-29 biennium. We just need to understand your project's implementation timeline, consumption volumes, or application requirements to solution and provide estimates. If you engage with the program early, we can ensure we are aligned on the estimates and confirm you have factored in all of the direct, indirect allocations and administrative fee costs. The idea here is for us to all be on the same page. On the right side of this slide is the contact information for the MSI and DIR resources that can help you with any questions you might have to start this process. Next slide. The STS forecasting process, simplified here in 5 key steps, has been consistent and refined over several biennium. And for the upcoming session, we'll be working closely with the LBB to determine if there are any process improvements that we can make to ensure the funding request flows smoothly through session. The MSI and DIR leverage customer historical spend for current customers, solution details and cost estimates for new orders, refresh and concurrency needs, software and SaaS renewal projections, and many other factors. And then we work with customers to add new estimates for future projects, whether or not the project will be submitted as a legislative appropriation request exceptional item. DIR's customers shared technology requests to submit, DIR uses the customer forecast to develop DIR's legislative appropriation request in September and compiles all the customers shared technology service requests to submit to the LBB as part of the STS enterprise report. When legislative hearing and session starts, DIR, STS resources, and leadership help support customers throughout the process and with STS technology solution costs for physical notes. Next slide. The STS funding timeline highlights include formally kicking off the process in February of 26. Yes, February. Remember, you can start the IDEA or ROM process now. At the end of March and into early April, DIR will conduct webinars and release forecast packages for customers to review, refine, and add to over the summer. but DIR must have alignment with your funding request prior to submitting our own LAR in August and the LBB report in September in order to be in sync. Written narratives detailing the costs for continuing existing services and any requested new initiatives are prepared in September through December, based on the LAR deadlines and often aligned with legislative hearing schedules. Customers frequently use the narratives to respond to LBB or legislative office questions. And then finally, in January, session begins. I wanted to add, if you're a discretionary customer operating on an alternate budget cycle, such as a calendar year, the forecast timeline and our support commitment is the same. Thank you. That's all I have for today. So Brittany, it's all yours.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. If Mark, if you can head on over to the next slide. We do have our DIR resources here with all information about all the things we went over and contact information for you to follow up with any questions that may come up after this webinar. Again, we will be posting it to our YouTube channel soon, and we will send out this presentation shortly. I think we've answered a lot of the questions that have come through the chat. So if anyone has any they want to ask, please go ahead and add those in the Q&A. Some of the things that have been brought up was just a reminder that IRDR is due on March 31st. The AI training certification standards that Cody mentioned under House Bill 3512, those standards apply both to vendors that produce AI training videos and to state agencies that will be that want to develop their own training. This is just similar to the cybersecurity training certification process that we've been following for the past few years. And then there was a question about HB 5195. Elizabeth did post a fact sheet that provides a lot of information, but there are 2 reports that DIR has to provide to the legislature, and we have to collect information from agencies for both. The first one, we are collecting that information via the IRDR. And the second report, which I think is due, it's due in December 1st of 2027, so we have some time. That one we are still, that one is one that we will be working with the LBB to develop how we will be collecting that information. So I don't know if anyone else has any last minute questions, or if not, thank you all again for joining us today. I think I did get one more new questions. Agencies required to report on AI training completion in FY 26. We are not asking that in the IRDR next year. Or I'm sorry, right now. We are not asking that question in this year's IRDR. As you know, we're still in the process of implementing that. So once I get certified, we'll begin asking those questions. So thank you all. I think that's it.